So, can you share me a little bit about your personal journey and what inspired you to become a mental health therapist?
Absolutely. When I tell people this story, it always seems a little bit weird. So, when I was younger, I had never been around a therapist. I had never seen a therapist, nothing like that. I was watching TV one day, and there was a therapist inside a juvenile detention center. And I was about 13, and I was like, that is what I'm going to do with my future. And in eighth grade, we had to write a letter to ourselves saying what we wanted to be when we were older. And that person in the movie was a clinical psychologist or a child psychologist, something like that. And the letter got mailed to me when I was a senior that said that I wanted to be a child therapist. And I think a lot of it is I went through a lot as a kid. My dad was killed when I was 5, and we moved from New York to Virginia and was separated from our family. So there was just a lot of stuff happening. And I felt like for whatever reason, I responded to it very differently than other people that I knew have responded to things like that. And if there was something that I could do or give back to others to help them manage things like that, I wanted to do it.
That's really inspiring. So, can you tell me about the Ryan Bartel Foundation and how you became a part of that, like a board member?
Absolutely. So I worked for a group mental health practice, different from the one that I own now. And I met Susie Bartell. She was speaking at an event, and I was really impressed with how well and openly she talked about suicide, because it's one of those things, even in the mental health profession, that we just don't talk very openly about. And I really liked the way that she shared Ryan's story, and I liked just how raw and authentic she was. And so I talked with her for a little bit, and a couple years later, someone recommended me to be on the board. And she gave me a call, and she remembered meeting with me and asked me if I would join her board, join the board of the Ryan Bartel Foundation. So I have been on the board since January 2021, I believe. Might have been 2020. It's been a long time and on the board. And from there, I helped develop the Mental Health Advisory Council, and I also chaired that. I'm also the chair of their programming committee. So a lot of my work is meeting with teenagers, doing focus groups, helping to develop and tweak our programs so they meet the needs of teenagers as things are evolving. So, of course, we had one set of rules during COVID and had to change those to the rules post-COVID. So it's been a lot of growth and expansion.
Right. Are there any myths about suicide that you think are particularly harmful towards teens?
Yes, that's a good question. Um, I think the idea that we always see warning signs or people leave notes and things like that, I think that is harmful, because I think that sometimes people hide things, even teenagers. If they don't want you to know something, they won't, you won't know it. And I think so many parents, unfortunately, have this assumption that their teen will come to them if they need something, rather than parents seeking out and having those conversations. Like, we've had so much education recently about just ask the question, because if your child is not thinking about it, they're not going to that's not going to plant any seeds for them. But it's so important just to have that communication, not in any sort of a finger pointing way, but just, hey, I was watching this show and suicide came up. Do you know what that is? Have you ever thought about these things? And just normalizing those conversations. But I think when we shy away from it, it also sends a message to teenagers that we shouldn't talk about it. And so they don't.
So, say a teenager has a friend who may be having suicidal thoughts. What would you say is the best way to have that conversation with them without making the friend feel scared or judged?
For the teenager to talk to the friend.
Yeah.
So I would say just listen. And sometimes just validating and reassuring people is really what they need. I think if it becomes heavy, definitely tagging a trusted adult in, because that's a lot for a teenager to hold on to. But I think just being a comfort to a friend. I work predominantly with teenagers, and so often what they're looking for is just to feel like someone cares or just to feel heard and feel loved. And sometimes something as little as, do you want me to come over and we talk about this, or do you want to come over to my house and talk about this? That goes a long way. And then being able to sit with your friend and say, I think my mom could really help you. Would you like to talk? Can we go talk to my mom about this, or your mom, or school counselor? There's also a training called Teen Mental Health First Aid. It's a fantastic training, and it is for teenagers and adults. There's a mental health first aid and a teen mental health first aid, and it's just about how to have everyday conversations with someone when you notice that they are in need, or they come to you with a concern.
What would you say are like common triggers for anxiety or depression nowadays in teenagers?
I think social media is a large factor because I think social media normalizes things that shouldn't be normal. And I think it also forces teenagers to compare themselves to people in a way that isn't always realistic. I think and I think social media brings an awareness that our teenage brains don't really know what to do with. So you're being flooded with information, but you don't really have a way of understanding it in an age appropriate way. Like, for example, I have a cousin that I'm raising, and when she was about 11, she didn't like all the changes that her female body was going through. And so she knows the term transgender. She knows the term that she doesn't want to be a girl anymore. And so she came to me and said, well, Denisha, I don't think I want to be a girl anymore. I'm going to be a boy. And I said, okay, but your female body is still going to go through female things. And she was like, well, that's not fair. If I said I'm a boy, that should stop. And so it's those little things that I share with teenagers all the time where we think we're processing this information, but we're really not. I think school is a big stressor, and I think the pressure of being successful and going to college and what does that look like adds a heavy weight to teenagers. And I think just navigating the changes within your own body while you're navigating being trapped in school with other people who are also going through all those things, it just causes us to overthink situations.
What is something you can recommend to parents and educators on how they can better support young people?
I think listening and validating, not saying things like high school is hard for everybody. You'll be fine. I remember when high school was like in my day. Like, that's not validating to someone because your struggle is real to you. Sometimes just sitting and just saying, you know what? Tell me about your day. I'm really sorry that you feel overwhelmed with school. I'm really sorry that that happened to you today. Like, do you need my help with this, or what are you planning on doing? Sitting and helping a teenager just to navigate these situations go so far because I would argue most teenagers just want to be heard and understood. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to be guided toward that. I think it's also really important to as adults, to put ourselves in teenagers' shoes. And I think so many adults have forgotten how to do that. It's tough being a teenager. It's tough trying to figure out, what your life is going to look like. You're trying to please yourself and your friends and your family and your teachers. And sometimes all of them want something very different from you while you're still trying to figure out who you are and who you want to be.
What are common misconceptions that you see about therapy that you wish people would understand?
I think that a lot of people think that therapists are trying to fix them or their problems, which is not true. I tell people all the time, I am not trying to be an expert on your life. I'm trying to teach you to be an expert on your life, trying to teach you and help guide you. I'm walking beside you, not in front of you and not in back of you. Um, I think the idea of, the parents need to be in charge of their child's therapy. I'm also not a fan of that. Like, I don't care what age you are, I will ask you, the client, the question, how often do you want to meet with me? What do you want to talk about today? Do you want your mom in this session? Things like that. I think another misperception is that therapists are out to like hospitalize people. Like that is not what we want. If you are having honest conversations with us, we're going to problem solve with you. We are not looking for, oh, you're suicidal, let me put you in a hospital somewhere. That doesn't work. And if you find a therapist that's doing that, that's probably not the person for you. Um, Another misperception I would say is that every therapist is not a good therapist, just like every dentist is not a good dentist, every doctor is not a good doctor. And sometimes you do have to jump around to a couple of people to find the right match for you. And I think sometimes people get so frustrated with the process that they just give up rather than searching for the person that is a good fit for them. Um, and therapy takes work. You know, you didn't get here overnight, and no matter how good your therapist is, they're not going to fix you overnight. That 1 hour that you're in a therapy session, you have to take that information and you've got to do something with it. Maybe they're a little bit more honest about what's going on. So the parents may not see that, but that doesn't mean that change isn't happening.
So, what is one habit that you personally rely on to protect your own mental health?
So part of my self-care is definitely setting boundaries. I am a boundary queen. So every day I take a lunch break and it is an uninterrupted, not working lunch break. And that is because I'm actually very introverted. And so talking to people all day takes a lot out of me. And so I need sort of that hour to sort of decompress and get ready for the rest of the day. Um, I also take showers and baths depending on if I am really stressed. I turn my phone off at a certain time every day just to sort of, again, decompress and disconnect. I like to read. Like to watch really stupid TV where my brain doesn't have to think. But for me, it's just having that routine of like being able to separate.
Do you have any tips for teenagers who want to start placing boundaries but don't know where to start?
Yeah, so boundaries don't have to be as difficult as people think. Like, it's not always a yes or no. One tip that I tell people to do a lot of times is just to pause before you give an answer. Like, oh, your friend Trevor wants you to go out on Friday, but you don't really want to go out. You don't have to say yes or no in that moment. You can say, hey, I'm not really sure what Friday looks like, but can I get back to you on that? Like, let me check with my parents, let me check with my mom. Sometimes setting soft boundaries, like I put my do not disturb on every day, and a lot of people have a really hard time with that. But I have found that communicating that doesn't make people feel like, oh, I'm ignoring them or I don't care about them. This is part of my journey and my self-care. I also think that being a teenager means you can blame everything on your parents, on your therapist, and who's going to question that? So you can always say, oh, my mom wants me to put my phone up at 8 o'clock. So sorry, I'm not going to be able to talk to you after 8. No one's going to call your mom and yell at them for that. And so sometimes that's an easier out because boundaries can be difficult for people. I
Right.
think boundaries also communicate respect. So if I care about our friendship, I want you to know my boundaries because I want to make sure that you're not doing anything that upsets me and then means that we can't be friends in the future. And also, I want to make sure that I'm not doing anything that upsets you where we can't be friends. So sometimes we think of boundaries as this big, mean thing, but really, I think boundaries communicate love. Because if I don't care about our relationship, I'm not going to tell you my boundaries because if our friendship ends, it ends.
That makes sense. What advice do you give to teens who feel different or like they don't fit in anywhere?
That's a hard one because I never want to invalidate what somebody is feeling. I think that being a teenager when you don't fit into the mainstream is difficult. And sometimes it's, okay, let's think about how we find your people rather than making you fit into this peg that doesn't fit you. So, for example, I was one of those teenagers that when everyone else was going out and partying and things like that, I didn't do that. I was not a smoker, I was not a drinker, I was not a partier, which meant my social circle was smaller than other people's. But part of the advice that I gave myself at that time and what I give to teenagers is then I just had to do work to find who were my people. So maybe it's not, the basketball players at school, but maybe there's a book club. Maybe I like volunteering at the pet store or things like that. So just your people are somewhere. We just have to go find them.
Right. Do you have any like experiences or specific people that have shaped your approach in this field?
Yeah, so one of my mentors, his name is Neil McNerney. He was fantastic with how he worked with teenagers and how he worked with families. And watching him do therapy really helped me find that balance between like jumping into the teenage world, but also jumping into the adult world. I think he was also a really good model of like my stuff doesn't matter. And so I just need to be in the experience with my clients and help guide them towards where they want to be. I also had my supervisor who he supervised me for my licensure, Bob Helpenstill. He was so great at asking me thought-provoking questions. And
Mhm.
it used to upset me in the moment, like, just tell me the answer, just tell me what I'm supposed to do. But he would ask me questions that really helped me to see people and things in a very different way. Um, and I've always been one of those people that I just gravitate to people who are different from me, which I think most people don't do. They gravitate towards people who are similar to them. But I really enjoy learning people and I enjoy learning about different different upbringings and different circumstances and just how two people can go through the same thing but come out very differently. I want to talk to both of them and I want to know more about that. So I think every client that I have had has helped me to be the therapist that I am today. The ones that were with me when I was first learning and, didn't have all the tools that I have now. But I think just those two men, I definitely would say they helped me in very, very different ways. And just being my authentic self. I think when I was in school, there was a lot of like, you sit this way, you talk that way, you look like this. And then I started working with teenagers and I was like, if I do this stuffy white male thing, I am not going to get very far with these teenagers. I need to be where they are. And so just being my authentic self and having that permission to be my authentic self, I think has really been helpful. So I would credit those two.
I also learned that you have a practice called Journey to Wellness.
Ooh.
And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that too.
Absolutely. So Journey to Wellness. I I'm very proud of everything that I have created with that. So it was not my plan to have a group practice at all. I started doing individual therapy and I really enjoyed it more than I thought I would. And I was asked to join a group practice. I did that. I became the clinical director of that practice. And then I left and I just wanted to sort of do my own thing. I didn't want to supervise anymore. I didn't want to do anything. Um, and I'm a big believer in things happen for a reason. So the pandemic happened and my caseload blew up because everyone was in their house. All my old clients were calling. Um, and one of my friends reached out to me and said that they had a friend who needed an internship location and would I supervise her for her internship? And so I agreed to. And I realized that Denisha Johnson LLC could not be an internship location. And I really thought a lot about what I wanted to call my business. And I came up with Journey to Wellness because I think that it encompasses what my business growth and journey has been. I supervise interns and residents for licensure now. So that therapeutic experience for them and that journey for them, and also my client journey. And so right now, I think we are. a team of 13. Um, yes,
Hmm.
13 therapists and one personal trainer, because I'm also a big believer in the connection between how we take care of our body and how we take care of our mind. Um, and that has been my journey since 2025.
It's really impressive.
Thank you.
So what role do you think that like gratitude and like journaling and all these practices, like what role do you think they play in mental health and how teens practice it?
I think that they're huge. So our brains are set up where if we do something wrong or bad, it is like 72.5 with fireworks and highlighter, and it is big. Just think about if you have 10 things happen in your day, nine of them are good and one is bad, and someone says, "How was your day?" You are probably going to say, "Oh, I had a bad day." Because your brain is going to dismiss those nine good things and it's going to focus on that one bad thing. So to me, those gratitude journals, journaling in general, it just allows you to reflect on your day, reflect on things in a way that is non-biased, where you can sort of have a little bit of more balance. You can see the good things that happened. You can also reflect on your own personal growth. Like, I feel like I've been sucking for the last month. Well, your journal says that you accomplished all these things in the last month. So now let's figure out how we make sense of that. I like to tell people a practice that I have and I continue to this day is if my brain wants to say something bad about me, I will sit with that for a little bit because I think I need to learn from whatever the bad thing was. But I'm also going to counter it with two things that I did well. So my brain is going to rattle off those bad really quick. We're so good at saying the mean things to ourselves. But for every mean thing, I need to sit and think about two things to counter that. So that way my brain isn't not balanced or unbalanced. And I think journaling is just a nice way to just get all those feelings out and let it sit someplace else. Let it sit in that book rather than in your heart or in your brain or in your stomach.
What do you think are like simple ways to calm down when a teenager is feeling emotionally overwhelmed or in class or like if they suffer from panic attacks? Like, what are the first steps that they can do to start calming down?
Monitor your breathing. A lot of times when we get panicked, we will start to hyperventilate. So making sure that your breathing stays steady and calm, like box breathing, that breathe in for four, hold for four, exhale for four. It sounds super cheesy, but it's really important. Um, I also like to recommend progressive relaxation techniques because that's something you can do if you're in a classroom. You can do that and no one knows that you're doing any of it. So you can sit and like clench your fist and unclench your fist. You can raise your shoulders and drop your shoulders. And all these little things, like we don't even realize sometimes where we're holding our stress and our anxiety. So sometimes just letting that go and feeling that move throughout our body is so important and so necessary. And like I said, most people can't even tell that you're doing that. You just look like you're going like that, and no one knows anything else.
Um, okay, lastly, do you have any like last piece of advice that you can give to teens who are struggling mentally?
Remember that there is nothing wrong with you. Our brains are our strongest muscle and they are taking in information all the time. In the same way that we go to dentists for preventative care, we go to doctors for preventative care. We don't wait till our teeth are falling out and then say, "Hey, I think I should go see a dentist." So there is nothing wrong with asking for help. There's nothing wrong with saying, "You know what? It wouldn't hurt to talk to someone about this." I think so often people think they have to be in a crisis to reach out for help, and that is not true. We all need someone. We all need a support system, and your support system can be made up of a lot of people. Doesn't mean that your parents aren't there, doesn't mean that your friends aren't there. Just means that you need someone who you don't have to sit at a dinner table with or in a classroom with to kind of share some of these intimate parts with you. I think also practicing talking to yourself the way you talk to a friend. If your friend came to you with any of the things that go on in your head, you would never say the things to them that you say to yourself. So just practice being patient and being kind to yourself and just know that these moments are temporary. They feel really big, and they feel like they're going to last forever, but nothing lasts forever.
Thank you so much for this.
You're very welcome.